When strength means letting go. Please comment right away. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The mountains were quiet in winter. Snow covered everything like a blanket, muffling the world, making it feel like they were the only people left on Earth. Mara stood on the porch of their cabin, coffee cup warming her hands, watching the sun rise over the peaks. Behind her, she could hear Cole moving around in the kitchen, making breakfast. The smell of bacon filled the air. 3 years since her father had knocked on their door. 3 years since they'd started the slow, painful process of rebuilding what had been broken. It hadn't been easy. Nothing worth having ever was. Thomas visited once a month, sometimes twice. They'd have dinner, talk about small things. Weather, books, the news. Never the past. Not unless someone was ready. Lily had graduated with honors, started working at a women's shelter in the next town over, helping people who'd survived the kind of trauma she understood too well. And Mara had finally learned to breathe without feeling like the sky was falling. She'd opened a small art studio in town, taught painting classes to kids and adults who needed an escape from their own lives. Her work hung in local galleries. Nothing fancy, nothing that would draw attention, just honest expressions of a woman who'd survived hell and found beauty on the other side. Cole came out onto the porch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You're going to freeze out here," he said. "I like the cold," Mara said. "Makes me feel alive." He kissed the top of her head. "Breakfast is ready." In a minute, Cole stood beside her, looking out at the mountains. "You thinking about today?" Mara nodded. Today was the day. The day they'd been planning for months. The day everything would change. It had arrived 6 weeks ago. A letter. Official. From the state attorney's office. They wanted to reopen Marcus Bennett's case. New evidence had come to light. Evidence that proved he'd been part of the criminal network. Evidence that suggested his death might not have been the innocent sacrifice Thomas claimed it was. They wanted Mara to testify, to tell her story again. In court, in front of cameras and reporters and people who would judge her without knowing the truth. She'd nearly said no, nearly burned the letter and pretended it never existed. But Cole had stopped her. "This is your chance," he'd said. "Your chance to tell your side, to make people understand." "I don't owe anyone an explanation," Mara had argued. "No," Cole agreed. "But maybe you owe it to yourself." So she'd agreed. And today was the hearing. They drove to the courthouse together. Mara, Cole, Lily, Thomas, for people bound by blood and trauma, and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth would set them free. The courthouse was packed. Media, spectators, people who'd followed the case for years and wanted to see how it ended. Mara's hands were shaking as they walked through the metal detectors. "I can't do this," she whispered to Cole. "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "You're the strongest person I know." "I don't feel strong." "You don't have to feel it. You just have to be it." The courtroom was cold, sterile. The judge sat high above them, looking down with an expression that gave nothing away. The prosecutor was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. She laid out the new evidence methodically. Marcus Bennett had been involved in money laundering, had connections to organized crime, had a history of violence. This wasn't a case of a man sacrificing himself for his family, the prosecutor said. This was a criminal who got what was coming to him. Mara felt sick, felt the room spinning, and then it was her turn to speak. Mara walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like water. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, And then she looked out at the faces staring back at her. The prosecutor stood. Ms. Castillo, can you tell us what happened the night of March 15th, 17 years ago? Mara took a breath. My father came to our apartment. He had a gun. He was drunk, angry. He'd been abusing my mother and me for years. We tried to leave, tried to get help, but he always found us. And what happened when he entered the apartment? He pointed the gun at my mother, said he was going to kill us both. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen. When he came at her, I stabbed him. The courtroom was silent. Did you know it was Marcus Bennett? The prosecutor asked. And not your father, Thomas Bennett? No, Mara said. I didn't know Marcus existed. I thought I was defending my mother from the man who'd been terrorizing us for years. The prosecutor nodded, pulled out a photo, held it up. This is Marcus Bennett, she said. Does he look like the man you remember? Mara stared at the photo, at the face she tried so hard to forget. Yes, she whispered. And yet, the prosecutor said, you claim you didn't know he wasn't your father. That's correct. Miss Castillo, do you expect this court to believe that you couldn't tell the difference between your own father and a man you'd never met? Mara's hands clenched. They were identical twins. Same height, same build, same voice. He came into our home in the dark, drunk, and violent. I was 17 years old, terrified for my life. I didn't stop to check his ID. But afterward, the prosecutor pressed. When you saw his body, when the police arrived, you didn't realize then? No, Mara said. I was in shock. I'd just killed someone. The police told me it was my father. I believed them. For 17 years, yes. The prosecutor smiled. Cold, calculating. Or perhaps you knew all along. Perhaps you and your real father planned this, a way for him to escape and start a new life while you played the victim. That's not true, Mara said. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it seems awfully convenient. Your father gets away. You get sympathy. And Marcus Bennett, a man with no one to defend him, takes the fall. I didn't know, Mara said, her voice breaking. I swear I didn't know. The prosecutor returned to her seat, satisfied. And then the defense attorney stood, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Miss Castillo, he said, in the 17 years since that night, how many times have you thought about what happened? Every day, Mara said. And how has it affected your life? Mara's eyes filled with tears. It destroyed me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I had nightmares, flashbacks. I changed my name, moved constantly, couldn't hold down a job or maintain relationships. I've been in therapy for years trying to process the trauma. Does that sound like the behavior of someone who planned a murder? Objection, the prosecutor said, leading the witness. Sustained, the judge said. The defense attorney nodded. Let me rephrase. Ms. Castillo, if you had known Marcus Bennett was innocent, would you have acted differently? Yes, Mara said without hesitation. I would have found another way. Any other way. What I did, it haunts me. It will always haunt me. But I did what I thought I had to do to survive. Thank you, the defense attorney said. No further questions. Do you believe Mara? Yes or no? Let us know. The judge called for a short recess. Mara stumbled out of the courtroom, gasping for air. Cole caught her before she fell. I can't go back in there, she said. I can't. You don't have to, Cole said. We can leave right now. Just say the word. Mara looked at him, at the man who'd stood by her through everything, who'd never once doubted her, who'd loved her even when she couldn't love herself. I need to finish this, she said. Then we finish it together. When they returned, Thomas was on the witness stand. Mara hadn't known he was going to testify. Hadn't known he was even there. The prosecutor looked annoyed. Mr. Bennett, you were not on the witness list. I'm volunteering, Thomas said. I have information this court needs to hear. The judge considered. Proceed. Thomas cleared his throat, looked directly at Mara. My daughter is telling the truth, he said. She had no idea Marcus was taking my place that night. I didn't tell anyone, not even him, not until the last minute. Why? The judge asked. Because I was a coward, Thomas said. I'd gotten myself into trouble with dangerous people. They were threatening my family. I knew they'd come for me eventually, so I made a plan. I would disappear, fake my death, start over somewhere they'd never find me. And your brother agreed to this? No, Thomas said. He found out by accident. We got into a fight about it. He said I was abandoning my family, being selfish. He was right. Thomas's voice cracked. The night it happened, Marcus came to me, said he'd been thinking, that he was sick, terminal cancer, 6 months to live, maybe less. He said if someone had to die, it should be him. That way, I could use the time he gave me to make things right. The courtroom was silent. I told him no, Thomas continued. Told him it was insane. But he wouldn't listen. He went to the apartment, made himself look like me, acted like me. He knew my patterns, knew how I behaved when I was drunk and angry. He played the part perfectly. So, your brother committed suicide by victim? The prosecutor asked skeptically. He sacrificed himself. Thomas corrected. There's a difference. He gave his life so my daughter and ex-wife could be free, so I could have a chance to change. It was the most selfless thing anyone has ever done for me. He looked at Mara, tears streaming down his face. And I let my daughter carry the guilt of his death for 17 years because I was too much of a coward to tell her the truth. That's on me, not her. She's innocent in all of this. The prosecutor stood. Mr. Bennett, do you have any proof of this story? Any evidence beyond your word? Thomas pulled out an envelope. This is a letter Marcus wrote, the night before he died. His will. In it, he explains everything. His diagnosis, his decision, his final wishes. He handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. The judge read in silence, and when she finished, her expression had changed. This is certified by a notary, she said, and confirmed by medical records. Marcus Bennett did have terminal cancer. He had approximately 4 months to live at the time of his death. The prosecutor's face went pale. Ms. Castillo, the judge said, turning to Mara, it appears you were telling the truth. You acted in self-defense against what you believed to be a legitimate threat. The actions of Marcus Bennett, while tragic, were his choice. You are not responsible for his death in any moral or legal sense. Mara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Case dismissed. The judge said, Ms. Castillo, you are free to go. Mara walked out of that courthouse a different person, not healed, not whole, but lighter, like someone had cut the chains she'd been dragging for 17 years, and she could finally stand up straight. Cole wrapped his arms around her on the courthouse steps, held her while she sobbed into his chest. It's over, he whispered. It's finally over. Lily hugged them both, crying just as hard. And Thomas stood a few feet away, watching, knowing he didn't have the right to join them, but grateful they were free. That night, they sat together in their cabin. All 4 of them. What happens now? Lily asked. Now. Mara said. Now we live. Really live. Without looking over our shoulders. Without waiting for the other shoe to drop. You think you can do that? Thomas asked quietly. Mara looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd made so many mistakes, but had finally found the courage to make things right. I think so, she said. With help. I'd like to be part of that. Thomas said, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it, I'd like to try to be a real father for both of you. Lily looked at Mara. Mara looked at Cole. One day at a time, Mara said, "That's all I can promise. That's all I'm asking," Thomas said. Spring came to the mountains like a whisper. Snow melted. Flowers bloomed. The world turned green and gold and alive. Mara stood in her studio working on a new painting. Something bright and hopeful. A landscape of mountains and sky and endless possibility. Cole walked in, holding something behind his back. "Hey," he said. "Hey yourself," Mara said, not looking up. "What are you hiding?" "Nothing." Cole. He laughed, brought his hand forward. He was holding a small wooden box. "I made this," he said, "in the garage. Been working on it for months." Mara set down her brush, took the box. It was beautiful, carved with intricate patterns. Mountains, trees, a sunrise. "It's gorgeous," she said. "Open it." Inside was a ring. Simple, silver, with a small stone that caught the light. Mara's heart stopped. "Mara," Cole said, dropping to one knee. "I know we're already married. I know we already made those promises. But I wanted to ask you properly, the way you deserve. Will you marry me? Again, in front of everyone we love, so the whole world knows that you're mine, and I'm yours, and nothing will ever change that." Mara couldn't speak, could only nod, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Cole slipped the ring on her finger, stood up, kissed her like she was the air he needed to breathe. And in that moment, Mara finally understood. Strength wasn't about being unbreakable. It was about breaking and choosing to put yourself back together. It was about letting people in even when it scared you. It was about forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself. They got married in June, on the mountainside behind their cabin, with wildflowers and pine trees and a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Lily stood as Mara's maid of honor. Thomas walked her down the aisle, tears streaming down his face the entire time. Cole's eyes never left Mara, not for a second, and when the officiant asked if anyone objected, the only sound was the wind through the trees. They said their vows, promised to love each other through darkness and light, through fear and hope, through everything life would throw at them, because they'd already survived the worst. And if they could survive that, they could survive anything. The reception was small, just friends from town, people who'd become family over the years. They danced, laughed, ate cake, and drank champagne, and celebrated a love that had been forged in fire and come out stronger. As the sun set, Cole pulled Mara aside. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "Always." That first night at the diner, when I walked in bleeding and broken, I was ready to give up. I'd planned to drive into the mountains and not come back. Mara's breath caught. "But then I saw you," Cole continued, "and you looked at me like I was human, like I mattered. And I thought, maybe I'll stay one more day, just to see what happens." "I'm glad you stayed," Mara whispered. "Me too," Cole said. "Because you saved my life, Mara. You gave me a reason to keep fighting. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you know how much that means to me." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you," he said. "I love you too," Mara said, "more than words can say." 5 years later, Mara stood in the same courthouse where she'd been tried and judged and finally freed. But this time, she wasn't there as a defendant. She was there as an advocate. She'd started a foundation for survivors of domestic violence, for people who'd acted in self-defense and needed legal help, for anyone who'd been trapped by circumstance and needed a way out. The foundation was named after Marcus Bennett, a man who'd made a terrible choice for a beautiful reason, A man who'd given everything so others could be free. Today, Mara was speaking to a group of young women. Survivors like her, who'd fought back, who'd survived, who were trying to rebuild. I know what it's like to feel like the world is ending, she told them. To feel like you'll never be okay again. To carry guilt and shame and fear so heavy you can barely breathe. The women nodded. Some were crying. But I also know what it's like to heal, Mara continued. It's slow. It's painful. It's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. But it's possible. You are stronger than you think. And you are not alone. After the speech, a young woman approached her, barely 18, with scars on her arms and terror in her eyes. Can I ask you something? The girl said. Of course. Does it ever stop hurting? Mara thought about it, about the nightmares she still had sometimes, about the moments of panic, about the guilt that crept in when she least expected it. No, she said honestly, but it hurts less, and eventually you learn to carry it, to live with it, to make something beautiful out of all that pain. How? By choosing life, Mara said, every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, you choose to wake up, choose to try, choose to believe that tomorrow might be better than today. The girl nodded slowly. Thank you. You're going to be okay, Mara said. I promise. That night, Mara came home to find Cole and Lily in the kitchen. They were cooking dinner together, arguing playfully about whether to add garlic or not. Music played on the radio. The cabin smelled like home. Thomas was there too. He came for dinner every Sunday now. It was their tradition. Hey, Cole said when he saw her. How'd it go? Good, Mara said. Really good. She set down her bag, kicked off her shoes, and then she told them something she'd been keeping secret for weeks. I'm writing a book, she said. They all turned to look at her. A book. Lily said. About what? About us, Mara said. About survival. About second chances. About how broken people can put themselves back together if they have love and hope and time. That's amazing, Cole said. I want to tell our story, Mara continued, so other people know they're not alone. So they can see that even when everything falls apart, you can build something new. Thomas stood up, walked over to her, and for the first time in years, he hugged her. Really hugged her. Your mother would be so proud, he whispered. Mara hugged him back. I hope so. The book was published 2 years later. It became a bestseller, not because the story was unique, but because it was honest. Mara did interviews, spoke at events, helped launch support groups across the country. And everywhere she went, people thanked her for being brave enough to tell the truth, for showing them that survival was possible, for proving that you could be broken and still be whole. One evening, 10 years after that first night at the diner, Mara and Cole sat on their porch watching the sunset. They were older now, gray starting to show in their hair, lines around their eyes from years of smiling. You ever think about how different things could have been? Cole asked. Every day, Mara said, if you hadn't walked into that diner, if I hadn't poured your coffee, if we hadn't chosen each other. Scary thought. Terrifying. Cole took her hand. I'm glad we did, though. Choose each other. Me too. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from knowing someone so completely that words aren't always necessary. You know what I realized? Mara said, what? That night when we met, when you walked in bleeding and broken, I let you believe I was weak, just a waitress, nobody special, because I thought if you knew the truth about what I'd done, about who I really was, it would destroy you. And I was wrong, Mara said. The truth didn't destroy you. It didn't destroy either of us. It set us free. Cole pulled her close. You were never weak, Mara. Not for a single second. You were the strongest person in that diner. In this whole damn world. So were you? Then I guess we're both pretty lucky. Yeah, Mara said, resting her head on his shoulder. I guess we are. What was your favorite moment from this entire journey? Let us know. We read every comment. The diner was still there. Different owners. Different name. But the same building. The same counter where Mara had poured coffee and Cole had found hope. They visited it once a year. On the anniversary of the night they met. And on this particular anniversary, they brought someone new. A teenage girl. 15 years old. With Mara's dark hair and Cole's gray eyes. And a smile that could light up the world. Their daughter. Grace. Named after the second chance they'd been given. This is where we met, Mara told her. Your dad sat right there, ordered black coffee, and whatever pie was left. That's so romantic, Grace said, rolling her eyes in the way only teenagers can. It wasn't romantic, Cole said. It was desperate. I was a mess. We both were, Mara added. But you found each other anyway, Grace said. That's pretty cool. Mara and Cole exchanged a look, one that held 20 years of history, of pain and healing, of love that had survived impossible odds. Yeah, Mara said softly. It is. They ordered coffee and pie and sat in that diner talking and laughing and being grateful for every moment that had led them here. Because strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up. It's about letting people see your scars and loving them anyway. It's about choosing hope even when the world gives you every reason to give up. And it's about understanding that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone believe you're weak until you're both strong enough to handle the truth. Thank you for taking this journey with Mara, Cole, Lily, and Thomas. Their story reminds us that healing is possible, love is real, and second chances can change everything. Drop a red heart in the comments if this story touched your heart. Subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. And remember, you survived the thing you thought would destroy you. That makes you a warrior. Until next time, keep fighting, keep healing, keep choosing love. Thank you for being here. You matter. Your story matters. And the world is better because you're in it.